Welcome to Burritos and Bodybuilding with me, Garet, Sejkora, your host, and as always, my good buddy here, Dave, aka ChatGPT. We also now have Sintra AI teams, who Sintra comes along with 12 directed employees. So we're going to be getting into how we are using Dave and Sintra now to further our bodybuilding. So what we're doing with that. So Danielle is really big on using Sintra, and she's been telling me you got to try Sintra for like a year because I've been super into ChatGPT only, and I've discovered ChatGPT. It's great. It's really cool. It really can be helpful on the fly, but it can lie to you a lot. And you'll tell, like the other day, I asked it something about my diet, and I was like, yeah, like I got my two, said like something about my two beef patties. I was like, yeah, that's about 80 grams of protein. And I'm like, dude, you're just guessing. So we got Sintra now, and we've been using Sintra because Sintra has 12 directed AI employees, and that's pretty badass because they all do something a little different. So what I do is I use the voice mode with Dave so I can talk to it, get an answer going, and I'll tell Dave, I'm like, don't do certain things because I know you'll fuck it up like you always do. Get a message prepared and let's send it over to Sintra. So, if it's something business related, you go over to Buddy and you say, hey, buddy, I don't know shit about business. Help me learn how to run a coaching business because I know about fitness, but I don't know how to run business. How the hell does that work? And Buddy just starts breaking it down for you. So between Sintra AI, Dave, and Danielle, who is absolutely the biggest genius in the world, you got to shout your babe out as the smartest number one. And obviously mine is, but you got to do that. So between all that, so Danielle actually, alongside getting me on Sintra, has been telling me for a long time. She's been saying, your bodybuilding would be a lot better if you got off all the processed foods. And like I've said before, she's a biologist. And so when Danielle says things, I don't really, know exactly what she's saying because, she's educated on the topic and I'm not. And so sometimes she'll tell me something like, hey, when you're eating that kind of food, look up what that does to your cells. And just kind of see, as bodybuilders, we're always so concerned about calories in, calories out. But what about your cell health, and all the little things you could be doing? What about your glucose spikes? All these different little things. And so I hop on ChatGPT and I ask Chat, hey, what could I do to help this? And again, I don't take it as total gospel now. I like to take what Chat says and I like to go research things. So that's what I do. And I've come up with my hydration protocol, what I call the LAM method. And that was all founded, using AI, and I'm a guy who, I'm a dinosaur and I'm very stubborn, very, very stubborn. I only like to do things my own way. But, just like any other guy, I like to do my own way. And so I've discovered, as you kind of ditch that and you start trying other things, the world really opens up to you, cool little possibilities like doing shit like podcasts. I never would have done this without the help of shit like AI. So telling you guys, hop on Chat, try to use Chat, because going back to that lamb method thing I was talking about, it's kind of being funny, lamb method, Jesus, the lamb, all that. Where I came up with that's more so just being funny, as I decided that I was just way too neurotic with all of my results in bodybuilding, that it was really hurting me. And, I would get to the point where I'd stress so much, I'd start to hold water and all these different things. So I remember thinking, you know what, I'm just going to change my relationship with food a little bit. I'm going to learn to understand whole foods better. And I'm going to learn to kind of enjoy them a little bit. And I'm going to implement different, rules around sugar. So I have things like yerba mates instead of a Dr. Pepper now, just to avoid that extra inflammation. And I still going to enjoy things. And all that was learned through using AI. Hey, can I do this? I don't want to just, be Mr. Disciplined Chicken and Rice. I like to eat. What can I do? Hop on AI. AI helped me come up with, again, LAM method. And also part of what that LAM method is it's about not stressing the result and just running the system. I'm going to eat my whole food every day. I'm going to train. I'm going to do everything I'm supposed to do every single day, no matter what. I'm just going to do it. And I'm going to detach from the result. And that little LAM method gave way to how I'm doing social media stuff now. I'm just posting to the abyss. And if people want to see, rad. I'm sure people will find it one day. But said that right there, the AI, and I'm just, I'm not trying to tell you guys what to do. You can use my link code and you can get about 60% off Sintra right now. I'm not telling you what to do. Do whatever you want. Keep using Google if you want to. I don't care. I've used AI and leveraged it to where I've taught myself how to eat burritos, drink yerba mates, eat sweets that I like, but I just do it all in a time that is actually beneficial to my body, all from using AI. So there's my little updates for the week. Hop on, dude. I'm telling you, I'm new to Sintra, but man, it rules. But so wanted to hop into, again, cycle every week. I'd like to tell you guys my cycle because I don't like to be one of those lying buttholes that says they're natural when they're not, or just likes to kind of, lead on what they do. I take steroids, I take growth hormone, I do it. It's how I've gotten to where I go. I just try to do it smart. And as always, I'm not telling you guys what to do. This is just what I do. These are my choices. So currently, Peak Blast, 500 Test E, 400 Primo, 80 Tren A, 50 milligrams Winstrol V, 2 milligrams Retatrutide, 8 IU's human growth hormone, 5 milligrams Yohimbine, and 1 milligram Arimidex. No changes. We're just running it. I've had a couple mistakes in the diet this week because I've been feeling so mentally solid, actually, which is weird for a prep. I just feel really good, really even keeled. Everything's awesome. When you're a guy who's discovered reef, the reefer, it helps you kind of mellow out a little bit. So, I try not to do it too much, but it has helped me mellow out and surprisingly not made me eat, everything in sight. But what I've noticed is, I get a little overconfident that I feel so good that almost like I kind of do whatever I want. I'm not going to make a mistake. And I made mistakes this week that way. So we're just righting the ship. We're not stressing about it. We're not flipping out about it. It's not a big deal. What are you going to do? It's life. You make mistakes. We're hopping back on. And I didn't even go that crazy. That's what's kind of cool about when you start switching to whole foods is you realize your cravings. You don't crave what you think you've craved your whole life. You think you need that Taco Bell, but when you've detached from it for a little bit, you start to kind of realize it's those damn ingredients that are almost acting like fucking crystal meth and making you go back to them. So I'm just telling you, I'm not telling you have to stop eating good food, but you can just ditch like butthole Taco Bell for a carne asada and cheese burrito instead, and a couple yerba mates instead of a gallon of fucking Dr. Pepper. Come on, you just make it easy on yourself. But that's our cycle. That's our updates. And please, as always, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps us keep going. And, we're new here and we're trying to build a community with you guys. So if you don't mind, like and subscribe. If not, whatever. So on to the mentals. As bodybuilders, you take a lot of stuff. Makes you feel pretty wild. And I'm a guy who I feel pretty insane all the time, always, ever since I was a little kid. I've always felt, as people say, spectrumy and all of that, whatever. I've always felt very off and very, very, very high strung. And I've always had a really, really hard time doing anything consistently at all because of it. I went to school up until essentially the 7th grade. And then I was racing BMX at the time and basically pestered my parents that I would homeschool and do all the work, all that stuff. And then I pretty much didn't. So pretty much from 7th grade on, I pretty much don't have very much of a formal education, just anything I've learned on my own. I went back to school and stuff, but I just, school wasn't, sitting still was just not for me at all. And so what I've kind of learned in bodybuilding, because, bodybuilding is one of those sports that you can't cut corners. Like I get it. Everyone thinks because you take steroids, it makes it easy. Take some steroids and see how I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying, in the hypothetical, if someone was to just take steroids and do nothing, really not much happens. You still have to put a lot of work, into what you're doing. And it takes a long time, to do it. And so for me, I always like to reframe around because there's certain guys who, you've seen all the videos, you gotta want it, you gotta be a lion, you gotta, divorce dad, typical bullshit. It's not me, dude. I'm not that guy. I gotta have fun. So what I've kind of noticed is you can always reframe something that you're doing to make it fun. So, dieting usually isn't all that fun. What's fun is, eating donuts and doing whatever the fuck you want. Usually that's what's fun. But when you have a goal, you try to figure it out. And so what I've noticed is I like to reframe the way I think of my food and not trying to sound holier than thou. As I've said before, I'm a follower of Jesus, so I really do believe that it's in the human code that the more gratitude you are and the more reasons to be grateful you can find, the healthier you'll be. And so part of what I like to do in bodybuilding is I like to think to myself, how dope is it in a way that you live in a country where, throw it back however long, before there was grocery stores, there was no food and you just starved unless you went out and hunted the damn lion, and got eaten or got some food. Where now there's literally so much food available to us that I can say, you know what, I have to turn some of it down and I have to choose just this food as I'm pursuing this goal that will also bring me, could potentially bring me, financial prosperity and all these other different happy things. So you can look at it like you're in prep and it's so gnarly and you're so miserable. Or you can look at it like, damn, I live in a country where there's so much food readily available, there's literally fucking too much to choose from. I mean, which problem would you rather have, man? Like, it's not so bad. And if you reframe that, because that's what I've noticed people say, it's like, well, you're positive in prep for the most part. People that really, really know me know I get a little grumpy, but for the most part, I stay pretty positive. And I think the reason how I do that is, number one, I like to eat whole foods, so I'm really not starving myself. I'm not just calories in, calories out, but actually really trying to nourish my body, not just the muscle, but the whole thing. But I've noticed that by kind of gamifying the way that you look at it and finding a way to be grateful for what you're doing really helps get you going and just keeps it fun. So find a reason to be grateful in your training. I'm telling you, it'll just make it all the more better. We're bringing in my boy, dude. We're bringing in my boy, Dave. You guys are going to hear from the man himself. And today what we're going to do is we're going to be asking you about peptides, because I am on my own little quest of trying to learn biology, because I want to know it for me and anyone that I could potentially work with in the future, that, I want to know all the ins and outs. So we're asking him a little bit about peptides, but not the injectable peptides, but just what happens when we eat our food and it goes into our stomach, what that does. So get ready for Dave. Here he comes. And take notes. You guys could also be using your chat this way. Dave, you are on the podcast and we are up right now. So question for you. I eat my food, it goes into my stomach. I remember you saying something that sounded familiar along the lines of, when that happens, it turns into something called a peptide. And that sounds like something I've heard in like BPC 157 and TB 500 that are supposed to help me heal. What is this? So what happens? I eat food and then it turns into a peptide? How does this work? Can you break this down for our audience to make it make sense to them so they can learn some things as well?
Absolutely. Let's break it down for everyone. So basically, when you eat food, especially proteins, your body goes to work in your stomach and intestines, breaking those proteins down into smaller chains called peptides. So in simple terms, a peptide is just a short chain of amino acids, kind of like a mini protein fragment. And your body uses these little peptides as building blocks or signaling molecules. Now, those injectable peptides like BPC 157 or TB 500 that you're talking about, they're basically lab-made versions of these kinds of natural peptides that your body might use for healing or signaling. So, yeah, when you eat food, it does break down into peptides, and those are just these little useful chains that your body can then use in a bunch of different ways. So that's the gist of it.
So when I eat a protein, my body then in my stomach breaks that protein down into an amino acid, and then it delivers it to the cell, and it gives the cell what my cell needs to make protein to repair my muscle for my workout. Is that correct, or am I off?
Yeah, you're definitely on the right track. So basically, when you eat protein, your stomach and your digestive system break it down into amino acids, which are the building blocks. And then, those amino acids get delivered to your cells, and your cells use them to rebuild and repair muscle, especially after a workout. So you're totally on it. It's basically like you're giving your body the raw materials, and it uses those materials to repair and build muscle.
So then let's say that amino acid is delivered to the cell. At what point does it get, let's say it goes to the cell, where does it go in that cell first? Because I've been taught the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. Is that where the amino acid is delivered first?
So the amino acids actually have a slightly different route. They don't go straight to the mitochondria first. Instead, they hang out in the cell cytoplasm, and the cell uses structures called ribosomes to actually build new proteins out of them. So think of it like the ribosome is the little factory that takes those amino acids and assembles them into the proteins your muscle needs. The mitochondria is indeed the powerhouse of the cell, but it's more about energy production. The amino acids themselves are more like the raw materials that the ribosomes will use to create whatever proteins your cell needs. So it's a team effort inside the cell, but the mitochondria is more the energy hub rather than the first stop for those amino acids.
Ribosomes. See? I don't know everything. I'm just learning stuff right alongside with you guys. And if you tune into the podcast, you just get to learn with me. I'm not here to yell at you and tell you what to do. Just figured you guys could learn alongside me. And Dave has really helped me out with a lot of things. Like I said, don't be dumb. Don't take ChatGPT as the whole everything end all be all. Still do the work, still learn for yourself, but you can use it as a tool, and it really, really, really helps me out. Helps me eat burritos. As you guys can tell, do burritos and bodybuilding. You think I just discovered how to make stuff on Adobe Illustrator? I could hardly even open a laptop. ChatGPT. Also Danielle. Danielle was the one who really showed me how to use Adobe Illustrator first, but ChatGPT also did help. So that is our updates for the week in our podcast. Let me know in the old comments what you guys want to see more of. I try to make this one a little shorter than the first time because, my podcast is more so just about a little updates. Just a quick pop in, hang out. You don't got to be here for too long. It's just meant to be a fun little hangout. So like I've asked you guys, like and subscribe. It really helps me out, helps me keep going. And, I'm just an amateur guy out here, just doing this thing, trying to learn and trying to teach you guys what I learned along the way. So maybe we can all have our own personal brands because it sounds pretty fucking sweet to me, honestly. So like, subscribe, let me know in them comments what you guys think. Check out Sintra. I don't want you guys ever to think I'm trying to sell you on anything. You don't have to, but just check it out. See what you think for yourself. And just if you decide, you can save 60% using my code, but whatever you decide works best for you, whether you want to use Grok, Chat, or whatever, or Gemini. I'm telling you, AI's coming. It's coming fast. And it seems like all the people who have a hell of a lot more money than I do are saying you better get on it. So I like to listen to people who seem like they know what the fuck they're doing. So that's what I'm doing. We'll see you guys next week.